Well, anyway, but so I like to include little moments like that. I, there are moments, for example, between Bit von Rheingold and Michael Nur. One of the things, the Michael Nur character will reappear in my book about Gorgeous George as one of the interviewers of that pro wrestler. I mean, I've got so many ideas to do. I just don't have the time to do them all. But that Michael Nur character is a versatile character who's a good supporting character that is probably going to appear in a number of other works too. I'm sort of probably weaning myself off of Bit von Rheingold because he's so over the top. This will probably be the last book Bit von Rheingold will appear in for quite a number of years. If I ever use him again, it'll be with a significant lapse of time between, so that I come to him more fresh again. But Michael Nur is someone who can be used again. I enjoy having these characters that are sort of serviceable characters that can push along plot points and help illuminate other people. But you also see a different side to Bit von Rheingold. In the three major appearances of Bit von Rheingold, his own book, Bit of Golem, in A Norwegian in the Family, especially in chapter 54, and also in this book, there are three very distinct Bit von Rheingolds. In A Bit of Golem, we see Bit von Rheingold in the first decade of the 21st century. And if that book is to be believed, Bit dies by the end of that book, which means he probably died around 05 or 06, because that was set a year or so after I wrote the book. And then in A Norwegian in the Family, we see him as a young man in real time in the 1960s, a relatively young man from about the age of 25 to 33. And then we see older versions of him, which can be justified because this is an LSD trip. That's probably not the real Bit from the future. And in this version, we see Bit von Rheingold in his heyday, sort of from the late 70s to the late 80s, when he is no longer the struggling filmmaker. He's become a billionaire. He's got the money. He's investing in things, but he's not the old guy at the end of Bit of Gold. He's not the Kane, the Citizen Kane figure yet. So each of those has sort of sketched out their own versions of Bit von Rheingold.
You know how there's oldest Bit and then there's Bit of Golem Bit in the acid trip. This one is more Carmen Miranda Bit.
Yeah.
You know, he's wearing his attire in there, which is of course hilarious, and how he'll intrude pretty much anything of a deeper nature, including poem readings, farting, and dancing.
But one of my favorite scenes, you mentioned the salon scene. Another really very well-written scene is the interrogation scene with Bit and Nur and then Spectre and Bert Convy and Elias Walker, because Bit von Rheingold is antagonizing Bert Convy the whole time. And yet Bert Convy is also not liked by this guy called the Inspector. And so Bert Convy is sort of being bit by bit emasculated. But by the same token, Michael Nur at the time, he's been pulled over because I think he's crossed state lines with pornography or something that Bit has in a truck that he was driving. And you get a sense of the relationship of this Michael Nur character, who's, again, a real writer. He wrote a book called Sex Life of the Gods, his most famous work. And you get a real sense of the very loneliness of this guy, who's a real-life character, who shares some qualities with my version of him. And those are the kinds of things. The accordion guy, when we see the accordion spy guy, we get bits and pieces of his life, some real things that I looked up on him. He winning an accordion championship, appearing on certain television shows and whatnot, and the loneliness of his life. As I said, there's a scene where we get a number of the females. Another scene that really sticks out is there was a real life. You can look it up on YouTube. A guy in Pennsylvania in the 1980s was falsely accused. A treasurer of Pennsylvania was falsely accused of crimes, and he has a press conference, puts a gun to his head, and blows his head out. And this gets back to the anti-hero thing, because we find out that Elias Walker's girlfriend worked as the secretary to this guy, and Elias Walker was part of the people who was undermining this guy with false stories, and in a sense helped drive this guy to suicide. So it's this Elias Walker doesn't have his hands clean. He's a complex character. We see with his mentor, his salon mentor, his own insecurities. He's capable of great heroism. He's capable of deeper thoughts. He's capable, but he's also capable of selfishness. When he's finally ready to settle down with Lal, she's moved beyond him. We don't have no clue why, but we can easily posit that she's had enough of him at this point, and she's moved on. Whether she'll succeed or not, who knows? But so you get real people, and this is the thing that is totally missing from contemporary fiction. I've read in the last few months, I read this book called Purple Hibiscus. It's by a black female writer whose name I forget. I read this couple of books by this Julia Alvarez. Terrible books. These terrible books. And it's not terrible because they're black or they're Hispanic. It's because they write about dull characters whose only existence to say, I'm a lesbian, I'm a Chicana, I'm this. That woman who won the Pulitzer Prize, Jhumpa Lahiri. Her characters are the same types of characters as these bad MFA writers who are white as shit. But all you do is throw in a few Indian spices. The Elias Walkers and the Michael Ners and the salon guy and even Richard Nixon, as craven as he is and as parodic as his scenes are, you get some real moments that these are characters that think. And even going to the Western book, as mythic as that is, there are some real scenes, like I said, where the cowboy Elias Walker has to kill his own horse, where he feels...
Even characters that aren't able to think on a deeper level, like the Bert Convey iteration. He has sort of a Stardust memory scene, a la Dory, in which he becomes fractal.
Yeah.
And it is so out of it that it engenders a lot of...
And the deathbed scene, Elias Walker is there like a day before he dies, or maybe he dies later that day. And you get a sense that these two men have some kind of connection, because Bert Convy in real life is 2 years older than the Elias Walker character. And we also get, there's another Hollywood guy, a crooner, that was actually Bert Convy's mentor that helps mentor Elias Walker. So you get a sense of the passing of these are real characters. They do things. Sometimes you get the sense of the regret. One
thing I would disagree with is that's a very key passage. Bert Convey sees Elias Walker as like a little brother, and you get the sense as the conversation progresses that Elias Walker does not feel the same.
Yeah.
That he thinks Virgil was his brother, and that will be the only brother that he has, and even in that sense, he could have never been close to his brother. So you can get some sort of dissonance there. In most books, it probably would be where they bond towards the end, but that's not how life works out.
Right. Well, and that's an important point that I just forgot until you mentioned it. I ended the Virgil Walker scenes in A Norwegian in the Family, I think in the first book, Paulie, where Virgil Walker is hired by Paulie Maravelli and Tony Delaguardo to find out about the Mulists and the Foundation. And he somehow gets killed, and it seems to be that he's killed by the Norwegian. And when we pick up in this book, we get the idea that it looks like finally Elias Walker over the 30 years is going to find out what really happened. We go back to that great scene in Cleveland from the Norwegian, where where the Norwegian meets the super spy. But in this book, we get the same scene. It starts off a little bit later. The girl has a different name because, again, this is Elias Walker's version. That other version was Manny Cole's version. And so only one was there. So we can say that probably the super spy is probably a bit more accurate version than the Norwegian. But names are different, slightly things are off. And it looks like that he's going to avenge his brother's death. He finds out that that guy was the Norwegian. This is the guy who killed my brother, and nothing happens. We find out, I believe, in the book too, that Virgil Walker is buried in a Jewish cemetery. So at some point, Virgil has converted to Judaism. but yet we never find out the story about that because it's not important. And one of the things that you look, I mentioned Charles Dickens. If you look in Dickens's books, and I love Charles Dickens's greatest 7 or 8 books or whatever, but a lot of there's so much material in so many novels, especially the Russians, that is utterly unnecessary. And what I do in a lot of these big books is I bring these things up, and you think I'm going to go off on that tangent, but just like in a Norwegian in the Family, in this universe, the fate and the life of Virgil Walker is not that important. In both books turn away from telling us what actually happened. We know Virgil Walker died in the mid-60s, 64 or whatever it was, but 63, 64, whatever it was, but we don't know why. And I don't think I'm ever going to explain why. We know he's a very Mike Hammer, Mickey Spillane type character. But why he turned to Judaism, why his family seemed to not care about him, why Elias Walker never tries to avenge his brother or even find out more. We don't know why, but that's the way it is. Just like I said with this play with this guy who cheated on my cousin. I don't know the real story because I don't know what happened behind closed doors. My play is going to be my version of things that I heard, bits and snippets, translated through four decades later. There's no way that we can know, and that's the way it should be, because Elias Walker had some kind of schism from his brother. It seems in this book it's implied that when Virgil went off to Korea in the Korean War, the brothers were never as close as before. But we don't need to know. There has to be that mystery in life. It's not important. The book isn't about why Virgil and Elias Walker split. It's about Elias Walker. And one of the things about Elias Walker is that for some reason, he never really had a deeper connection with his brother after early childhood. Why that is, it's not important.